Welcome back into Three Bold Takes, guys. We are continuing our Defining a Successful Season series. Today, we are landing on the Ole Miss Rebels for the 2024 season. Real quick, if you like this video and other videos like it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and engage with the video. That way you see more of our content, including the videos in this series. With that being said, hey, Chase, how are you feeling about Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels for 2024? What makes a successful season to you?
This might be my ride or die team for this season. I haven't made any conclusion yet, gentlemen, so don't come at me just yet. I've got all summer to debate this, but I'm really high on Ole Miss. I think we've been talking about him all spring, and I'm excited about what Lane Kiffin has done off the field and what he's potentially going to do on the field for the 2024 season. The number one transfer portal class stole a lot of great defensive guys out of the portal and brought them along, brought back a lot of their offensive pieces for this next year that could have went to the draft, and Jackson Dart, running back and wide receiver names escape me at the moment. But just absolutely stacked roster on paper. If Lane Kiffin as a coach and offensive coach should have a great job, should have a great season as well. They finished the 2023 season very well. They almost had a good game against Georgia, lost that one late, but finished 11-2 overall with a New Year's Six bowl. All right. We are called Three Bold Takes. I think a successful 2024 season for Lane Kiffin and the Rebels is being in the playoffs. I think playing in the SEC championship game. I think they can do that this season. And I think this might be, I don't know how long the window is, but I think this season is that window. Saban's gone, so DeBoer and Alabama are on shaky ground. You don't know how well they'll be. The schedule, which I'm guessing y'all two will break down a little bit more than I will, is very favorable this season. You got to get through Georgia. And if so, you could play in the SEC championship game. That is my success for Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. I don't think it's got to be you got to win the national championship, but playing in the SEC championship as Ole Miss and the Rebels, I think that is huge for your program and your team and will only build you bigger and better.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to kind of go along those lines here. I think you have to make the playoffs. 12-team playoff, you have to make the playoffs. But I want to go a step further. We've seen Ole Miss win 10 games now 2 out of the last 3 years. What have they not been able to do? They have not been able to beat Alabama or beat Georgia. Now, I know that they played Georgia last year, whatever. On the road, they got humiliated. It wasn't even a competitive game. They beat LSU last year. Now, if you look at their schedule this year, their toughest game, it's kind of a toss-up at LSU, and then you get Georgia at home this year. There's no Alabama on the schedule. I think it is time for us to see Lane Kiffin beat a Georgia or an Alabama. Now, obviously, they don't get Alabama this year, so you have to beat Georgia. You have to take that step. You have to prove that you can win against the best of the best in college football. It's time. Now, Ole Miss traditionally has been, 8-9 wins, 7-8-9 wins. Lane Kiffin eclipsed the 10-win mark in 2021. The very next year had a down year. I think they won 8 games. And then obviously last year went 11, they won 11 games. So you cannot have another down year after winning 11 games. That's number one. But a must, and I'm talking a must. Now, maybe the LSU game ends up being your Georgia of 2024 because you get Georgia late in the year. Georgia has a tough schedule. There's a chance they've already got 1 or 2 losses. It's not likely, but there is a slight chance. But you have got to beat a Georgia or an at LSU, depending upon how LSU is next year. But I'm circling that Georgia game. You got to get it. And if you get it, you're playing for the SEC championship, in my opinion. I don't think you have to be a successful year with the way the conference is looking, the teams that are in the conference. But you have to beat Georgia. You have to make the playoffs. And I think you have to win 1 or 2 games in the playoffs. You can't just make them and then be a first-round exit. Now, you proved last year that you could beat a Penn State, and Penn State was a pretty good team last year. Would have been in the playoffs if it was a 12-team playoff, and that would have been pretty much a playoff game, and you would have won the first one. So I need to see that again. You have to make the playoffs. You got to win at least 1 or 2 games, and you got to beat Georgia. Quinn?
Look, for me, one, you have to be a playoff team. I think this schedule is too easy. I think you have, in my opinion, you have 3 games you got to be scared of, and really it's only 2, and that's LSU and Georgia. Maybe you want to tag Oklahoma onto that list. You far and away are more talented than every other team that you're playing on your schedule this season. So you have to take care of those games. All right. Number 2, I need a marquee moment. All right. Last year, I would argue you gave me 1. You beat LSU at home. And then if you want to throw in your bowl game win, you gave me 2. For me, a marquee moment for Ole Miss this year. And the reason I don't throw the bowl game in on that, where I do count LSU, even though I think Penn State was a better team, is I think you have more you're playing for when you play a big marquee opponent like that in the middle of the season, where LSU's hopes were still alive. So were Ole Miss's when they met. Penn State and Ole Miss were not playing for a national title by the time they met. So you got to give me a huge marquee moment. Is that going into Death Valley and getting a win? Is that beating Georgia at home? Maybe. What I'm thinking more so is I need an SEC title win. I need a playoff win, something of that caliber, something that really sticks in your mind. And that's where I qualify, like a big comeback moment in Death Valley or an upset of Georgia at home. Either one of those could classify as this, but to pair with a double-digit season and a playoff win or a playoff appearance, you need a marquee moment. So if that marquee moment doesn't come till the playoffs and you beat a playoff team, I'll count it. Like you could lose to LSU and Georgia, miss the SEC title, sneak into the playoffs, get a win. There's your marquee moment. But I need a big, memorable moment from the 2024 season for Ole Miss that allows you to keep building on this. Otherwise, I feel like you're missing a really good opportunity where you've laid a really solid foundation for your team when there is a power vacuum of sorts opening up in the SEC right now, and you could firmly set yourself in there as the transfer location of the conference. So I think that's really the big key with Ole Miss is they need to capture lightning in a bottle this year and make something for everyone to remember this season.
And let me just say this real quick. Is this really a time we sit down and say, what makes it a successful season for Ole Miss? Or do we say Lane Kiffin? Because this window that Lane Kiffin has, which may be 1 to 2 years, if he doesn't capitalize by beating a Georgia, by playing an SEC championship or whatever, does he get labeled as a head coach that will never reach that upper echelon of eliteness when it comes to, hey, we should hire this guy at Texas or Michigan or wherever because he could take it to promised land? So that's something you could be looking at with Lane Kiffin this year too if he can't beat Georgia?
I wouldn't say that. I would say it becomes more Ole Miss can forget about ever being a location where a coach is going to achieve that. I don't think it's the end all be all for Kiffin. If you're winning double digit seasons at Ole Miss, the school who historically is happy to make a bowl game, and you're on a regular basis winning double-digit seasons, you're going to get a chance to jump ship and go somewhere else. And that's the scary thing for Ole Miss is if he can't achieve it here, he's going to eventually leave to achieve it somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't think the national narrative will be that because I think the national narrative will understand it's Ole Miss, right? Like, yes, they've killed it in the transfer portal this year and even recruiting, but I don't think it's a destination that can sustain that for a long period of time. Now, will I think that? Yeah, probably, because I've been, like, I love Lane Kiffin. Like, I do. And that's why, like, you have to beat Georgia this year. Like, you have to prove that you could beat these guys, in my mind. Otherwise, I'm never going to take you serious. Now, the national media they may make playoffs, cool. In a 12-team playoff, Cincinnati can make the playoffs. Okay, what does that matter? You could lose 2 games to make the playoffs. Like, that's no longer a upper echelon thing to do is make the playoffs because there's 12 each year. There's not 12 elite programs in any given year in college football. There's maybe 2, 3, and I think the 4-team playoff captured it well because you normally get the 3 and then you get the 1 wild card. So it will for me.
All right.
All right. Well, I guess that's everything we got on the Ole Miss Rebels for 2024 and what we think they need to do to be successful. Like I said, guys, this is one video in a string of videos following this topic with multiple different teams. So be sure to keep checking out the content on this channel for other teams in this series. With that being said, I've been Quinn with Freddie and Chase. We're 3 Bold Takes, and we'll see you next time.